Welcome to Hops News, the trusted source in beer culture news. Here's your host, Jay Brew, with special guests, the Hoppy Mommy, Lucky, and Mash.
Hey, welcome to another episode. I will tell you guys, if we're not pulling shit out of our ass at the last second on this production, it just isn't happening. I don't know what the hell the deal is. I do know what the deal is tonight, but as usual, pulling it out at the last second right before we got to hit start streaming and recording and everything else that has to happen on this end. But got a great episode. I'm excited about this episode, and I will tell you why. College football is right around the corner, and I cannot wait to get back into those stadiums filled with rowdy, drunk people that are raising hell for college football. And I know there's a couple of gentlemen that are going to be on this episode with me tonight. We don't have the whole crew. We don't have everybody that was listed in the promo there, the entrance music that we have, but we've got a good crew lined up for you guys tonight that I think you'll enjoy. We've got a guy that we're bringing back. We had him on one episode last season, early in college football season, and of course we've got Mash that's going to join us because he's a college football guy too. He likes basketball, but I will tell you, Mash is pretty big into the college football scene as well. So looking forward to having these gentlemen join me on this episode, and I will tell you, it's going to take me a second to get things laid out because literally was scrambling at the last minute to get everything put together as we had. So you might see some screen changes throughout the episode as I tweak everything in and fine tune it. But I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to talking some college football. I've got a good one tonight, and this is a good one that goes along with tailgating in college football. Lager Days by Noda Brewing out of Charlotte. These guys are doing some amazing stuff, and this is one of them they tweeted recently that I commented on. And as everybody knows, it's lager season for me, and it stays lager season through the fall with college football and tailgating because it's one of the only beers. I think this one's ringing in at 4.5%, so you can literally wake up drinking one of these and go all day. Because I hate to say it, but that's really what happens up here in Boone during football season. We're usually at the tailgate, and before the sun comes up, I've got a beer in my hand just as the sun comes up. And if it's a late game, we're at it. And it can be a rough morning, but that's how you go to college football, right? So looking forward to this episode. Let's go check in with Mash. See what's going on out there in Mountain Home, Idaho. Mash, thanks for joining us, man. You're the only regular on tonight. I feel privileged that you've joined us in a part of the college football preseason episode.
I wouldn't miss some football talk for the world. If there is one thing I know probably more of than comic books and movies, it is definitely sports. You can ask my wife. God, she hates the time from about August till February where I'm just watching football all weekend long, and she's like, can we go do something? And I'm like, yes we can, but we just got to be back for this game. And then she hates me, but I appreciate her. She sticks with me nonetheless. So yeah, I'm pumped. I'm drinking another good beer myself that is probably good for tailgating. It's from Wrightsville Beach Brewery out of North Carolina there on the Outer Banks. It's called Airlie Amber Ale. It's delicious. It's got a good color to it, a really good, finish that you would expect out of an amber ale. And my wife actually picked this up when she went to North Carolina a couple of weeks ago. So can't complain. I'm excited to get to a Boise State game this year for the first time because I moved here at the end of 2019 and then COVID happened and no fans were allowed last year. So which was really crappy because I had my degree. I was going to Boise State and I had season tickets and whatnot because I was a student, and so I'm excited to get there this year, man. I'm stoked for some football.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a season for it. I was going to say it's got to be extra special for you being a grad now from Boise State. That's a pretty good school, college football school to graduate from.
Yeah, it was pretty rad. I graduated on the football field in the end zone and everything, so that was pretty cool. I had been taught the blue field since I was a teenager growing up in Boston in the 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Boise State games because that's the only time they would come on. And so I fell in love with the blue field, and here I am. I graduated from it, and it's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, man. Appreciate you joining us. We'll talk a little bit more about Boise State here in just a second for sure. They're going to be a topic of conversation. Let's go check in with our guest, Jeff from Jeff Needs Sports. He's a host out there joining us from Columbus, Ohio. Obviously, clearly a Buckeyes fan. Everything that you see around Jeff is Buckeyes. Jeff, appreciate you joining us last minute, man.
Oh no, it's never last minute. It's kind of what I do now as a sports podcaster. Actually, you asking me in the middle of the day is way ahead of the schedule most people give me, and I love it. I love talking college football. The season's heating up. We're less than 30 days to go to the Buckeyes game, and we're pumped about the season. We're excited about what happened last season and building on that. I'm excited that it's a really good schedule this college football season, which means a lot of content for a podcaster and a lot of just viewing pleasure for a college football fan. So I dropped the ball a little, so to speak, on the beers tonight. But what I'm chilling with, it's Yuengling. Everybody knows Yuengling. It's not a hole in the wall or anything, but they make they call it a light lager. It's a lager, but it's a 99. Yeah, it's a 99 calorie. I mix it with a little lemonade. So I make my own shandy with it. It's very enjoyable. It's pretty hot here in Ohio right now. So just kind of relaxing, I don't want to start slurring my words when I get a chance to be on a great show, but it's a very enjoyable, crisp lager for a 99 calorie beer.
Jeff, you're tailgating it early, man. That sounds like a great tailgate mix right there. You've done that before.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we got two ways we tailgate. When we did our show last year, we talked about this. If we go to the games and we do like our literal tailgate out of the back of our car, we usually drink booze, if we're being honest, because it's less trips to the portalette that has 5,000 people waiting at it. But other than that, if we're having a camping trip and sitting around and I'm watching 12, 13, 14 hours of football, I like to have something a little lighter, something a little refreshing, but it depends on the time of the year. You guys know the deal.
Oh, dude. Speaking of, drinking in the parking lot, this year is the first year that Boise State is going to sell alcohol in their stadium. It's a big thing here right now.
We went through that I think it's been about 6 or 7 years ago now. That is, it's unique.
Yeah.
There's pluses and minuses to that when you have 110,000 people in the stadium, but I'm for it. And we're lucky. We have some great breweries here in Columbus, and they actually have a spot to sell their beer. So we can get some really, really good stuff from pretty small breweries, so to speak, that sell at the shoe. So that was a nice upside that, we weren't stuck with the big brands.
Yeah. We went through the same thing here at Kid Brewer. I think we're working on our 3rd year of it, but it's definitely, I hate to say it because it sounds cliche, but it's a game changer, literally, for fans.
Yeah.
Well, for fans and rowdy.
Well, I'll be honest with you, and you guys know this. I'm not saying this to anybody that doesn't know. Alcohol is consumed inside of football stadiums, whether they allow it or not.
Oh yeah. I remember I went to a Pittsburgh Steelers game one time, and I would think I was 20 years old, and the dude next to me just pulled a Southern Comfort bottle out of it was this Ravens Steelers game.
Oh,
bottle it out. Was man hit like, fuck, I'm not going to turn it down. Why not? But
yeah. The good thing now is though that college football, the teams are able to capture the revenue, right? Because not so many. Obviously it's still being snuck in because they don't sell hard liquor in stadiums yet, but obviously they're able to capture a little bit of that revenue that they've been missing out on. So I think it's a good thing. I think that sort of thing will allow teams to make a little bit of revenue on it. And to be honest with you, I don't see as many people shit-faced in the stands as I used to. Before you would be tanked before you walked in, or you was carrying in liquor, and those guys would carry in a box of airplane bottles and be gone before halftime.
Oh yeah, or the fake whatever
Bruins games.
Yeah, suntan lotion, fake suntan lotion bottles full of it. You name it.
Or you're drinking water bottles in the parking lot, but there's not really water in there, especially if you're like a college student.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh man, I remember those days.
Yep, Mash, and just so you know, I think the stream on Twitter is good. If anybody else can chime in, but I will tell you, Mash, you're having a little bit of internet troubles tonight. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on your end, but
that makes a lot of sense. I was just talking about this with Jeff. Actually, I was like, I was talking about we had internet. We were talking internet before, and I was like, for some reason, my internet used to go out all the time, especially when I had a guest on. So. There we go.
Yeah. I heard that when I was scrambling trying to get the audio back up. But yeah, I think everything's good. If anybody can confirm in the Facebook chat, Mash is usually
it's good. I see it now.
Okay. Mash usually monitors our Facebook chat pretty good, so if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and chime in there, and Mash will make sure that we get them heard. Appreciate everybody tuning in, all the regulars for sure, especially our Patreon members. Hope everybody's enjoying that Hops Baron box. I will tell you right now, that was a solid box. Probably one of the best boxes we've done for our Patreon. So if you're into barbecuing and you aren't a part of it, you definitely missed out on that box, because that box was healthy. Mash, have you cooked anything out of that box yet?
And you got that maple. Oh, I've been using the eggs like every day. I got some fipped up with some of the coffee rub there. Man, not a day goes by that I don't use any sort of those rubs out of there.
Yeah, that maple, I haven't tried it yet, but I have definitely had opened it and cracked it. Man, I cannot wait to put that maple. You know what I'm going to put it on? I'm going to put it on like an inch thick pork chop and put it in the smoker. Golly, man, that thing is going to be delicious. Maybe with some sweet potatoes. Oh, I might have to walk away and go cook some dinner.
Yes.
Yeah,
Robbie said he just made some red beans with the maple. I was out there telling everybody, if you didn't like the maple rub, I know a guy. Just send it this way, because I will devour that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and those guys are doing still. I think they still have the Hops News promo code on there. Go check them out. Doing great things. They're supporting the bottle share program as well that MASH is a part of. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, go check those guys out at Hop Barons. Great product. Hey, stick around. We've got a little bit of something in college football for everybody. We're going to do a preview show with Jeff, but we're not going to do the traditional preview show that you're going to find on probably most of the networks and podcasts that they're going to focus on the big guys, right? We know who's going to win the championship, or at least going to be in the contention for that. What we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to talk a little bit about everybody. We're going to go up and down the FBS conferences, and we're going to talk about the contenders in each conference and see where that takes us from there. So let's check it out. Let's start with let me see which one. We're going to start with one of the G5 guys. Actually, let's start with the independents, right? Because the independents obviously won't get much conversation in all of the other networks, but some of the teams on the independents, and we're not, obviously these guys aren't competing in a conference, so we're not going to give one or twos, but I think we can talk a little bit about who's in there and what we may see, because there is a team in here that might make some stink this season. Independent leagues in the FBS, or independent teams, are Army, BYU, Liberty, New Mexico, Notre Dame, UConn, and UMass. Obviously, the one that comes to mind is Notre Dame. Jeff, what's your thought on Notre Dame this season?
It's weird. It's another year, the way they lose another quarterback, another. They're coming off another season to where they had a great season, and yet everybody in their mind thinks they had a terrible season. They were a really good team last year. They lost in the playoffs to a juggernaut in Alabama. That always sits on them, but this team doesn't seem to reload quite as quick as the big name teams, as far as multiple playoff berth teams. So I'm gonna say they take a step back, and their schedule's vicious. They have some tough games on there with USC. They go to Chicago and play Wisconsin, which is one of my picks for games of the year to watch. They're not playing the ACC schedule they did last year. But they got a tough schedule, and it's a rebuilding year. So that combination, I'm guessing like an 8-4 team, something like that. But they could surprise me. I mean, they have done that before.
So Jeff, just real quick, obviously don't want to dwell on the issues with the realignment too much on this episode. Does Notre Dame tuck into a conference in the next few years because of this realignment, or do you think they hold their ground and remain independent?
I think it's going to be up to TV. If they decide to do these giant conferences, which I have believed is coming for a few years now, I'm not surprised by this at all. It's going to be whether NBC holds out. I mean, that's where all the money is. If NBC says, okay, we'll take all the Notre Dame games plus a couple ACC games, you have, and they spread that wealth out, then Notre Dame is going to be forced. They'll ease right into the ACC, I would imagine, or whatever that conference is called at that point. I don't even know if they'll have the same name. So yes, I guess the long answer is I believe Notre Dame will just almost have to be in a conference within the 6-year time period or whatever it's going to take.
Yeah. So some things that come to mind on this one, there's probably just as many teams in here. There's as many teams in here that needs to go to the FCS that need to move to a conference. I think BYU, Army, and Notre Dame will end up in a conference. I think UMass, New Mexico, and UConn probably need to consider moving down to the FCS and tucking in a conference down there somewhere, because these guys, those three teams are only going to get left further behind than what they are right now, and just over the past 3 years, they've lost tremendous ground by losing the conferences they were in.
Which is crazy to think that UConn was in a BCS bowl within the last 10 years. Before the Big East erupted.
That's what happens when you don't support a program.
I totally forget all about that.
And they actually that's a crazy story about that. They actually lost their ass in that, because when you go to these BCS bowl games, they tell you, here's the tickets. It's up to you whether you sell them or not. We don't care. And so, obviously with the lack of alumni like these other schools, it cost them millions of dollars to go to that BCS bowl game. And I'm sure that's been part of the downfall, because they probably took a step back and were like, I think we'd rather be bad than to lose $6 million going to a bowl game.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Mash, you got any takes on the independent guys?
I think definitely Army has shown that they kind of belong hanging up somewhere, not in an independent conference. I mean, look, everybody kind of, I know a lot of people complain that the Army style and the military schools are kind of boring to watch, but Army hangs with the best of them. I mean, and then you go to Notre Dame, there's not a doubt in my mind that they're going to have to choose a conference, especially the way people are jumping ship, swapping conferences right now. That super conference is coming sooner than later. And so they need to start, looking at getting their stuff in order, because right now they only play in a conference when it comes to like basketball and everything else, so they're not going to be able to hold out for much longer in football, which is the money maker for like any college out there. I don't care if you're small or big, football makes the money.
Yeah, that's a great point with Army. Army was a missed field goal away from beating Michigan last year, just so everybody knows. Army ran it down Michigan's throat at their own game. To be very frank, Michigan used to be, in Bo Schembechler's days, was a running team and a run defense team that you couldn't move. You couldn't move that defensive line, and those guys ran all over Michigan. And I would tell you, the only reason why they didn't win, it was their field goal kicker's first attempt at a field goal in a college football game. It's just insane. Yeah. So I agree, Mash. That's a great point with Army. I think that we see Army making some moves. If you guys haven't noticed their coaching changes that they've made probably over the past 2 or 3 years, but they've got some solid names in that coaching, that staff room that they have now. So it'll be interesting to see what those guys do.
And real quick on the independents, everybody needs to pay attention to Liberty and their quarterback. They have a phenomenal quarterback in Malik Henry. He's one of the funnest players to watch in the country. He's going to be an NFL player. He's going to get a shot at a couple decent teams this year, but just watch the highlights, watch the YouTube, whatever you got to do to keep up with that young man, because he's special.
Yeah, that's a great point. Not only their quarterback, but their coach, right? That guy will end up in a big high-powered offense program somewhere soon. There's already talk with the conference and the G5 guys that I chat with that Liberty's going to end up in one of the G5 conferences soon, probably the American Conference. They're putting up numbers and they're drawing crowds that make that conference attractive for them. So it'll be interesting to see what those guys do. It's kind of interesting we open up with the independents and have such great conversation about those guys, because they're an island on their own, trying to battle with these huge conferences and make a name for themselves. But obviously, some of these teams are doing well with it. Where are we going to go next? Let's go to Maction. This is an interesting conference as well. We've kind of seen these guys. I mean, we've seen just a few years ago, Western Michigan, holy hell, had a run like nobody else in college football that season. But they're kind of they're definitely not where they used to be. What do you see in the Maction?
I'll tell you, the MAC is kind of weird. The MAC is this team that, this conference that every year we're like, oh, these teams, like they're this close or this close and this close, but they've actually have lost ground to some of these other, G5 conferences, and, a team like Liberty. It's been kind of weird. Like top to bottom, they're more even than they ever were, but they're also don't have the one outlier. Like you talked about Western Michigan. Buffalo make some noise. Buffalo's got a great coaching staff up there. They really develop players well and things like, like that. I mean, I think they're the cream of the crop this year. Ohio take a step back. Their coach retired this year, but it's like, where are those NFL quarterbacks that they used to spit one or two out, every year? I mean, obviously Roethlisberger and guys like that. Just, it's like, it's a very good competitive conference, but yet we just don't have that outlier making noise anymore. So I don't quite know what to make of it, but I think Buffalo is the closest thing to, a team that can get a big bowl, nomination out of all of them.
It was interesting too, because there was a time when Central Michigan was even making noise, within the rankings and things like that. They climbed kind of decently up in the rankings, but yeah, this is a conference that is gone further left than right, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, I can. We've got a little history at App with Maction teams. Obviously, a couple of our first couple of bowl games involved those guys. First one was Ohio. Second one was Toledo that was projected. I mean, you can go and hear the commentators on our second bowl and their predictions for that bowl game. They were laughing, saying Toledo was going to trounce us. If I'm not mistaken, we beat them like 45-3 on that game there in one of the Alabama towns. But yeah, I think you're right, spot on there. Buffalo is putting together a team. I think the closest contender there is still Toledo. And that's really only by default. I don't think that they're doing anything special, but I think that just everybody else below them is that much worse. But it's kind of interesting how they're surviving. Maction is surviving by playing Tuesday night football games in prime time on Tuesday night. If I'm a MAC fan, I'm not too happy about trying to make a game on a Tuesday night. Thursday nights are hard enough in the Sun Belt, but Tuesday night games are brutal. It's got to be pretty tough going for MAC fans, and that I would imagine that's probably a conference that's either going to grow, get bigger, or dissolve in this conference realignment. But I think what they do is good. Right, I think those Tuesday night games are the best that they can get. Otherwise, they're competing with a lot bigger games and other events that are prime time. Well, so I think what that commissioner has done is pretty good at MAC.
And take it from somebody that lives in the MAC region, they also can't deal with the bigger schools, bigger names in their own states. Like, Ohio, their only chance, to get as many fans as possible, that they can't compete with the Ohio State fans. And so whether you're Michigan, whether it's Pennsylvania, Indiana, all these Big Ten states, the MAC, if they're going to squeeze the most fans, because, like where I live, probably honestly 70% of graduates are from OU, and 80% of them are actually Ohio State fans. That's just kind of how it works. So it's, they just can't fight over the eyeballs. So I think the Tuesday night was a great decision they made, and it's probably got them about as far as it's going to take them in this new world.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on out there in Mash's neck of the woods. Let's move out to the Mountain West. This is an interesting league or conference as well. Some pretty high-powered names with Air Force and Boise State. What's your take on the Mountain West conference here, Jeff?
It's interesting. This is one of these that now they do send that outlier every now and then. We talked about. Everybody knows what Boise State did over the years, and Boise State changed college football. I could do a whole show on the impact that Boise State had in the 2000s, how they got college football from point A to point B where we're at now. San Diego State jumps up, there, but what I like about a lot of these schools, because of the West Coast talent, especially Southern California, these schools will grab fantastic players every now and then. So they may not have the best team, but they'll have an NFL starter, on one side of the ball or the other. So it's good football out there. It's another one where it's so spread out, they kind of beat each other up. But I think Boise State's the best team in this conference, as far as I can tell. I wouldn't be surprised if San Diego State, Fresno State, if they're all right there, 1, 2, 3.
Well, San Jose State even last year won the conference out of nowhere. They went 6-0 in conference play.
Yeah,
which was
insane. What a weird year.
Yeah. I mean, granted, it was it was that strange year as well, but
it is what it is. You got to win the games you play.
Hey,
exactly.
Yeah, you win.
And great uniforms. They all just kind of look great. It's a visually great. Just a lot of fun to watch that conference. So it's. I grew up watching. I just told a story the other night watching Marshall Faulk out there for San Diego State University at midnight, and it was just one of the best things in college football at the time. So there's a place for this conference, and there are also schools in here that could make that jump to the next level when shit goes haywire here in a few years.
Yeah, Boise State is obviously one of them that comes to mind. I think Colorado is probably going to be pretty good this year, and don't quote me, but we might see something from Wyoming this year. I think they've put together a pretty good recruiting class up there, if I'm not mistaken. I think Boise, Colorado, and Wyoming could catch some people by surprise. The interesting thing about the Mountain West is, in the G5 guys, that's the Western guys, right? Mm-hmm. I think that conference is going to get bigger. I think you're going to add some Texas teams in there. Maybe even the New Mexico team makes a comeback in the G5 and gets on a conference. But I think Texas State would be wise served to move up to that conference and not have to travel out east and play the guys that are recruiting out of the Southeast as much as those guys are. But definitely a very interesting conference at Boise State, man. I don't care who you are. You got to give the respect that those guys deserve, because they've put on some football and put on some football for the past decade.
I've been a Boise State fan even before I ever came to Idaho. I mean, obviously I didn't come to Idaho by choice, but growing up, just like you watched Marshall Faulk, I grew up, in my teens when I was really finding my real passion for football was Kellen Moore's team.
Yeah.
Watching him go out there and sling the football around on Friday nights, man, like that's what really made me fall in love kind of with the team. And then I kind of fell in love with college football there. So they've always kind of been my defunct, my team. And so I think they had a little bit of quarterback. Last year, their quarterback didn't play obviously as well as we had all hoped, and then one entered the transfer portal this year. But I think they got a really strong running back team. Their wide receivers, for some reason, they do really well with their wide receivers out here, and they usually have a good defensive line as well. So I expect to see them probably get back to the top of the conference this year if we're playing a full year. Is kind of my thinking. But Wyoming, I don't know, man. I think they're making moves in the right direction, but honestly, like you said, I can see Colorado making some noise out this way, or Colorado State, I should say. And then again, San Diego State has been a team that they've been putting together a few seasons now, not only in basketball, but football has been a big resurgence for San Diego State. And I expect to see them right on Boise State's heels this year.
The only disappointment out of Mountain West is when BYU went to Coastal and got beat. That was the only disappointment from last year that I have with those guys. But definitely going to be an interesting change for those guys, because I think that's a conference that sticks around and gets a little bit better with this conference realignment. The only downside that I have for Boise is their field, man. Their field is absolutely horrendous.
Oh my God, it's amazing. I love it.
I'm sure that it is.
Okay, come out here. The field is even nicer in person. The TV does not do it justice.
That's the problem, right? I'm sure that in person it is absolutely beautiful.
I'm gonna snap some more photos for you, because I'm probably gonna go to every game I can this season.
But the issue is there's not a TV that can handle it well. That's the issue.
4K TVs now. We should be able to handle colors. You can watch Guardians. You see all these Marvel movies that are coming out with all their colors. You should be able to handle the colors now.
No, they're nothing as bad as Eastern Washington with that red field.
That red field is awful.
It's almost impossible to watch a game on that. I mean, I know they got a deal on it or whatever, but my goodness.
The blue field is nice. I got to get you out here, Jay, before I leave, and you got to get to a game with us.
And I sweat the Boise State uniforms. They were one of the first ones. You guys remember when that was when Nike went with kind of the pro combat, and everybody got these new alternate uniforms, and Boise State was one of the teams, and that's when they got the oversized horse on the side, the one side, and all that. It's awesome. It's like I say, they're just they have a documentary in there somewhere to be made about the Boise State football team.
Yeah, for sure. Mash, I'd love to come out there. I'd love to bring the Mountaineers with me and watch a home and home series with those two teams, man. That would be some G5 football to watch for sure.
Not only will we be drinking at the game, but I can't tell you, within a walking distance of Boise State, there's probably about 7 or 8 breweries right in that downtown area we would go to as well.
Nice. Yeah, I bet you that's probably a pretty cool vibe, pretty cool college scene as well, I'm sure. Let's keep moving down or up the list. I guess we're moving. Let's see where we're going to end up. I think is American Conference the last one that we have for
Oh yeah, American. That's right.
The American Conference, man. These guys are. This is a conference. It's filled with people that could get it done. But there's really been only one that's been able to get it done recently, and that's obviously Cincinnati. I'm sure that's probably where you're going, Jeff. What's your take on the American Conference?
Yeah, this is exactly what we talked about. This used to be the Mountain West, or this used to be the MAC. The American Conference is on the edge. I mean, they're probably top 4 teams are better than most of the teams in major conferences, so to speak. Cincinnati would be. Last year probably would have been the 5th best team, 4th best team in the Big Ten. They're going to be really good this year. Fickle has them rolling. They got their quarterbacks coming back. Desmond Ritter's coming back. And what helps them, this hurts. This is a negative to most teams, like we said, Notre Dame, but it helps Cincinnati. They play a schedule to where they have Notre Dame on it and they have Indiana on it. So Cincinnati going into the season ranked 11th, I believe, in most polls. Essentially, if they go undefeated, they have a real good shot at the playoffs.
I'm seeing number 8 right now.
Oh, wow.
But that's on College Football News.
Okay. Well, for the record, I haven't put my rankings out yet, but they're going to be way up there. Mine are I do mine a little different, but they're still.
Hey, there ain't no shame in that.
But they're really good.
Man, even Memphis. There's a lot of teams to like in this conference. So you have Cincinnati, East Carolina makes some noise. A lot of people don't pay attention to that. Houston's always right there. Memphis really, really brought it last year. And then obviously you have Navy, and then UCF actually plays relatively decently, but Cincinnati, they lost at the very last second to Georgia, I believe it was in the bowl. So they almost took it to Georgia and won, which is an SEC team. So I think they've kind of proven that they can.
A good SEC team.
Oh, they are very good. a very good SEC team. I was underselling them. Yeah. So I think Cincinnati, if anybody were to move conferences and make a lot of noise, it's probably that program. This is a good time for them to be hitting stride like this with the conference realignment coming up, because if they have a great season, they would probably sign a contract with the Big Ten or whatever it's going to be tomorrow. I mean, it's really a good springboard for them to I wonder
move
if they
up.
go ACC. You think they would go ACC if the ACC is still a thing?
It's very possible. Yeah. Or whatever they're going to call that. I could totally see them moving into that. They would slide right in there. They can support it. They have a lot of, it's a big school. It's a big enough stadium to support, pretty big crowds. I've been down there to a couple games. So they have everything they need in place to slide right into a major conference. And this season they've got everything in front of them. They just have to win.
Very good.
But I like what you touched on Memphis, a really, really good program.
Yeah, for sure. Memphis, Cincinnati, Navy. I mean, Navy has been tremendous the past 5 years. Those guys have really put together some good teams. UCF, that's a team with the right staff and doing the recruiting right. Man, I will tell you what, UCF makes me nervous when they have the right recruiting going for them. Those guys have a hotbed for recruiting, that they are putting talent on the field that is just outstanding for the level of football program that they are.
Oh yeah, especially where they were a few years ago. It's amazing their turnaround. You know,
Mhm.
Were they the one that just had that guy go to the NFL and he had to fight, and then they finally decided to let him out of his military contract? Where was it, Army?
That was Army, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
was it Army? I couldn't remember which one it was because I thought Navy had one at some point, a guy go to the NFL too. But
Yeah, they usually let them out, and they count it as Jeremy know more about it. They count it as recruiting, so that's how it
Yeah.
counts towards their service.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a that's an interesting conference for sure. We play ECU opening game of college football week. I think we're one of the first games of the week on a Thursday night at Bank of America. Obviously, an in-state rival. We've played them a few times. That'll be a big game. So, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I wish that they would pair us up. The Bulls for the Sun Belt suck, and as you guys probably know, or anybody that has followed App State knows, they get to the bowl games and they have atrocious opponents. And definitely would like to see some tie-ins with some of these guys, because these guys put together some good teams. It'd be interesting to play them. SMU's another one, right? Those guys have put together some good teams as well. So
Yeah,
Houston,
they're coming back pretty well. And
yeah.
and then that's a team, like, we won't go down the NIL road, but SMU is a team that there's a lot of money right there, a lot in Dallas, Texas. That's a team that could really benefit off recruiting with the new NIL rules. There's something to keep an eye on over the next decade.
God damn, man, that could end up being a disaster for a lot of teams, man. But a gold mine for plenty of others, for sure.
Disaster for high school football, but that's another show too that I'm doing soon. We'll see.
All right, let's go check out the Sun Belt. Let's check out the Sun Belt. Obviously, I'm pretty familiar with all these guys. We talk enough about a little bit of all of them. What's your take on the Sun Belt this year, Jeff?
You know me, I'm App State all the way. I have been since the day they beat Michigan, and then I met you, so it just enforced it. Just seeing the stadium, seeing everything they've done. I mean, I've been really impressed with their program over the last decade. I think they're clearly the favorite this year from everything I've read and everything I've seen. I won't pretend that I dig into the Sun Belt very much until the season, but App State's got a really fun schedule. They got 2 or 3 games that I'm really interested in seeing. I believe they have Miami on their schedule, Jeremy?
Second game of the season.
Second game, right? Yeah. And Miami's coming off Alabama.
Yeah.
If you're Miami, you're not circling App State. That's not going to be easy coming off of that game. So that could be a huge springboard for App State, going, and they're right on the edge of the top 25. So, if they come out of their first 2 weeks 2-0, plus they're going to have 10 days off before Miami, because you said they play on Thursday night.
Yep.
I mean, that's a springboard for the rest of the season. So I'm really happy about where they're at right now.
Yeah, the interesting thing, Miami came up here, I think it was 3 years ago, 3 years ago, and trounced us. Injured our running back. Running back had a breakaway run, 78 yards for a touchdown, pulled it with a hammy. They took it back to a block in the back, and Miami ended up walking all over us, like 38-7 or 3 or something like that. But I will tell you, it's fresh on these guys' minds. Some of the guys that still on this team were in that game, so it's going to be an interesting game to watch those guys play. What probably the average viewer doesn't realize is that there's a Clemson quarterback that will be starting for Appalachian State this year.
Oh, that's right.
And Chase Bryce is going to be their starting quarterback. Transferred from Duke, had zero protection on an offensive line at Duke, and the coach isn't going to say he's a starter, but if you watch the video that they put out today, he's the guy that's getting all the reps in the video of the first day of camp. So it's going to be an interesting season for these guys. Demetrius Taylor, if anybody watched the UNC game last year, he's the guy that got the strip sack, fumble for a touchdown against UNC, not last year, but the year before. Obviously a tremendous player. They say he's an NFL caliber guy, maybe first or second round type guy. He ended the season last year at like 305 pound. Coach said he's weighing in at 280. So take it what you will, but that's a guy that's obviously moving people, and that is what they talk about is the defense. I will tell you, as an App State fan, I give a lot of respect to Coastal Carolina, though, guys. That team has more money than Jesus, and most people don't realize it. But what is it? Ameritrade, TD Ameritrade. The founder of that company is a Coastal Carolina graduate.
That's starting
I
to
didn't know
explain a
that.
lot.
Yeah, that explains a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So that team's got more money available. They've won the College World Series just a couple of years ago with the baseball team. Keep an eye on those guys. I tell the people that I talk to on App State side, our friends, my guys that I drink beer with at tailgate, those guys make me nervous, man. If they stick around this conference much longer, they're going to be a hard team to beat, and they've got I'm not going to call him a great coach because I don't care much for him, but he's making some things click down there, and I don't imagine he sticks around in that program too much longer before he gets picked up by somebody that pays a lot of money. But it's going to be an interesting conference for sure.
It's a good I mean, you got App State, you got Louisiana, you got Coastal. These are three teams that could crack the top 25. I think there's I've seen Louisiana a lot of top 25s with App State. So
Yeah.
a lot of people believe that's pretty awesome though. For we're sitting here talking about a G5 conference. We're talking about how we got three really good teams at least, and then how competitive it's going to be. So it's one of these things. Like, I'm glad we're talking about this, because if you don't love college football, you're just not really. You just don't want to pay attention. I shouldn't say you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
You don't want to, because there's a lot of good football being played out there right now.
Yeah, there is. And Louisiana and Coastal both beat P5 teams last year. So keep an eye on for them. Those guys, they're nothing to shake a stick at. Both those teams make me nervous going into playing them, and I think we've got them both on the schedule this season. So also, we've got Marshall that comes back to Boone, which people probably don't know, but from the SCS days, Marshall and App State's got a hell of a history, and Marshall beat us last season in Marshall. So it's going to be some interesting football played in Boone. But Sunbelt is, I will say, Sunbelt has traditionally been the lower man on the totem pole, but they're making moves, right? I'm not saying they're going to survive, because I don't think they do. Their commissioner is horrible. I don't know how you have the teams that you do and you're not raising hell to get some New Year's Eve and New Year's game bowl games, because he doesn't mention it at all. But keep an eye out for those guys. I think they'll make some waves. Next one, let's go to the Conference USA. This is an interesting conference. Very interesting conference that doesn't make a lot of noise. For the teams that they have on it, they don't make a lot of noise. Charlotte is probably, in our area, UNC Charlotte is probably the most notable team. Middle Tennessee, probably another
Marshall's
one.
Probably the most notable team in that conference.
Yeah, Marshall, UAB, Louisiana Tech, I guess. Southern Miss used to be pretty decent.
Well, wasn't Florida Atlantic? That's Lane Kiffin's team, isn't it?
Yeah, they had that I think they went undefeated a couple years ago but they lost every game one year and then won every game the next year or something like that.
Yeah.
The Owls, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is definitely a conference that's kind of, I don't know what the word is, but they're delicate's not the word that I'm looking for, but maybe finicky or whatever that word is. But they're either hot, like they win every game, or they're cold and lose every game the following season.
Yeah.
But Conference USA could be pretty interesting. I don't think it's even takes much thought into this one, but
There's really not much to talk about on this one.
yeah, Marshall I think has it. Jeff, what's your take on Conference USA?
I got Alabama, Birmingham. Yeah,
Wow.
I think that, and that's, a lot of people are saying that, but I just it's just a gut feeling. I don't know. I just feel like they got awesome logo. I like it. I feel that it's Alabama, Birmingham's conference. I mean, there's 40 schools in this conference. It's wild. I'm going with UAB, and I was sticking to it. I think they had a pretty good year last year, if I remember correct.
Yeah. They had a pretty good season. We played them in the New Orleans Bowl not last year, but the season before, and wiped them up pretty good. But definitely an interesting conference for sure, and a great team. I think it's got a lot of potential, like you said. Let's move on to what's the next one we want to take? We want to go with the Big 12. Let's move on to the Big 12.
Okay.
Big 12, because I think this one is all but over, to be honest with you. I think we're seeing the last I think we're seeing the last few seasons of the Big 12 football standings. What's your take on the Big 12 there, Jeff?
I was trying to switch cameras there. I don't know if I've been still the whole time, but
You're good. You're good.
Quick. Oh, okay. My bad.
No, you're good.
Anyway, yeah, the Big 12, as of right now, I have it as Oklahoma's conference, and they've got, what's left of it, but they got Spencer Rattler coming back. I mean, as of now, he's, probably going to be, he's the top quarterback right now as going into the season, but their defense is so improved. They actually, in my opinion, should have made the playoffs last year. And I know I hate to say that because it probably would have kept the Buckeyes out, but they had a terrible start to last season, but the last 5 games after Rattler got benched versus Texas and then came back in, they won that game. They went on a tear. They were untouchable through the bowl game. They dismantled Florida. And I know Florida sat players. I don't care. You play who's in front of you. Oklahoma dismantled them with ease. So they've got all the momentum. They know who their team is. A lot of the teams that are playoff teams, the 4 playoff teams from last year actually, all have different quarterbacks coming into this year. So there's a lot of question marks. Oklahoma has very little. They're going to be very good. Iowa State was awesome last year. I've got them as the next best team. They got Brock Purdy and Breece Hall coming back, a terrific backfield, which is rare to get such a veteran backfield in college football. They're going to be great. Their defense was awesome last year. So it's a team that nobody wants to play, so I'll take Oklahoma. And then TCU could make some noise. They've got a returning quarterback, which is huge in college football. We just talked about that. They got Max Duggan coming back, pretty solid receiving core, and Gary Patterson always puts together a really good defense, and he will trip somebody up. If he's not winning the conference, he will keep somebody from winning it. So that's how I got it. But I have Oklahoma winning the conference, and I have Oklahoma going to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. 100%.
The Big 12 kind of reminds me of Conference USA for the P5 guys, right? There's a lot of teams that can do it. There's a lot of teams that have some really good seasons, but then they just fall off the cliff and you don't hear from them. And Texas, TCU, Baylor, West Virginia, the list just continues to go on. Texas Tech, the list goes on for those teams like that have really good seasons for a season or two and then just fall into the bottom of the P5 guys. And that's definitely these guys, but definitely agree with you. Oklahoma, I don't know what Texas is thinking moving to the SEC. That may be the last chance that they have to ever be out of the basement.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around, the Texas Oklahoma to the SEC thing. And then I wish they would come out and tell us what, if they're still going to call it the SEC. Well, I wish I knew what the plans were, because I don't know whether just to wait for a few years and see what it's going to look like. I don't want to waste a whole lot of my shows on this now. And then in 3 years, it's going to be, well, actually it's 24-team conference and, blah, blah, blah. So I'm kind of holding back on it. I'm trying to focus on this year, but it's overwhelmingly the biggest story in college football over the summer. I think Texas, I don't think this could be their year yet. Sarkisian, I don't know if I believe in the guy. I'm always wary about guys that comes from these huge programs and then jump over, just like Tom Herman. We sent him to Texas, or we went to Texas from us and springboarded, and it didn't work. Like sometimes they get caught up in what the team did. I don't know how much Sarkisian did. I don't know how much he didn't do. We're going to find out this year, but I don't see them. I don't see them in the top 5 this year in the Big 12.
Yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
Interesting conference that I don't think is going to be around much longer, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Let's move on to the Pac-12. I think this conference is going to stick around. I think when the realignment is done, I think they become stronger. I think they probably get some more recruiting base under their belt, and I think they pick it up and start to play for, at least in the playoffs, start to put some teams in the playoffs. Jeff, what's your take on the Pac-12?
In the Pac-12, I just from the way they finished the year and the way Keaton Slovis played, I think USC is the best team in the Pac-12. I really like the way the kid played late in the year. They got great talent, especially their wide receiver talent, really good. And their defense is young, but there's a lot of good recruits. They're very athletic. They're fast. I like the way they run around. And I just think, once again, it's just a running, thing of mine. It's you got a returning quarterback, a returning good quarterback, an NFL quarterback coming back. And I just think if it wasn't for Oregon losing their quarterback, I may flip flop this. But I got USC at number 1. I actually got Arizona State as the second best team. They got Jaden Daniels coming back.
Oh, wow.
For his junior year. I love the way the kid plays. I love Herm Edwards' defense. They're really a really good defense, like technically good. And in college football, that's huge. If you get some guys that know how to actually play defense and in the reads and all that, it's huge. And because of the coaching staff, and that's another plus I have. So I think Arizona State's actually the second best team. Then I got Oregon. They got talent from top to bottom, but they don't, as of now, they don't know who their quarterback's going to be. That doesn't mean he's not going to be good, but it's hard for me to say that they're going to win the Pac-12 when they don't even know who their quarterback's going to be. So I think that was a bad loss, that transfer. So I have Oregon third in the Pac-12 this year.
Yeah, definitely solid takes there. Mash, anything to add to that?
No, I would, man, I love Oregon. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. I think they're going to come out. I think they're going to, I'm going to boldly say it. I have them winning this conference this year. I think they're going to get things right. Maybe it's just a little homer because I've always loved Oregon, but I think they're going to come out. I think they're going to win the conference. I think Washington will be 2. And surprisingly, I think USC is going to fall to 3rd in the conference this year.
Okay.
Nice. You know what I see in the Pac-12's the future? Boise State.
Yes, for sure.
It needs to happen. I would love, man, that's something I've been wanting to happen for a while.
Man, that's a fit. That's a fit made in heaven right there. Those guys need, I mean, I'm sure there's already conversations in Boise's fan base and obviously in the Pac-12 fan base, but I think those guys would be a great fit. I think that well-deserved, obviously, by Boise State, but I think the Pac-12 sticks around after this realignment and grows and probably adds in there a Boise State or some of the other teams. But, yeah, these guys are, it's definitely one of those conferences again that rides some highs and are always in contention, but then has a couple of years where there's nobody in contention and people kind of forget about them. But yeah, I like your
Pac-12 after dark, baby.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I definitely like the take with the USC Trojans. I've watched some great games with USC and the Michigans and the Big Tens and those guys out in the Rose Bowl. So definitely I like those picks. Great teams, great conference that I think sticks around and makes it through it. What's the next one? What are we going to move to next? Let's move to the Big Ten.
Ooh.
Big Ten. Jeff, what do you take on the Big Ten this season?
I mean, it's obvious. It's Ohio State's conference to lose. It's weird because it does go against one thing I say. We think we know who our quarterback is, but the other side of it is we have 3 quarterbacks that are good enough to start, but the wide receiving core is one of the best, not just best in college football, one of the best, but it's as good as probably top 5 returning core that anybody's ever had, like compared to like Alabama last year. And what's good about these guys, they can get open. It's not just speed. It's not just that. They're hard to cover, so they're going to help a quarterback along the way with Olave and Wilson and the freshmen, and it's crazy. Now the defense was a question mark last year. Some of the guys coming back are rated higher than people think. Ohio State's notoriously their young players have made good jumps from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. So they have developed their talent. Obviously, the NFL can attest to that. They have some young, but just jump out of the building guys on defense now. So I think if Ohio State, I think a loss for Ohio State before the playoffs would be considered a disappointing year, amongst the fan base and amongst the country. Maybe one tough loss. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think that they're at that position. I've actually got Iowa second. You got a returning quarterback, Spencer Petras, solid guy, does what Iowa was really good last year. Their losses were just terrible. They're unexplained losses. Other than that, they were so solid. The defense was fantastic. So I think I have them second because I think, I don't know where everybody has Penn State up there. I just don't know if I see it this year. And I got Wisconsin. I'm looking at the Wisconsin before Graham Wirtz got COVID last year, and things really changed. The first few games of the year, that he looked like a freshman phenom. They're always solid on the line, solid defense. They got 8 returning defensive starters, gigantic in college football. So I actually have Wisconsin as 3, and I think that Ohio State's playing one of these teams for the Big Ten championship. As of right now.
See, I got Wisconsin as number 2. That's who I think. I think
And
Wisconsin.
that's fair. That's fair.
And I think Iowa and Penn State duke it out for the next couple spots, to be honest with you. 'Cause I
Agreed.
don't think Penn State's not going to take that leap this year, but I think they've gotten a little bit better at the very least.
They're a very good team. Franklin's done a good job. It's just that they took the last couple of years they took a couple offensive steps back, and I can't quite place it, but they're even when they put up points, a lot of it was like big plays, which that's great, but it wasn't as consistent or as reliable than that Penn State I think needed like for the big game. So that's the only reason I probably have them I probably have them at 4.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's solid picks, Jeff. And just real quick, something happened with your mic. We can still hear you, but it sounds like it may have switched to your computer mic.
Geez.
I think the Ohio State pick is definitely a no-brainer. I think that is just where it's going to be again this year. I like where Penn State is headed, and I definitely like the Iowa pick. What I will say is, if I'm not mistaken, Indiana was making some waves late in the season last year. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that team. But I would say, looking at the Big Ten Conference, there's probably some teams in here that could use a different conference. I think that once we see some conference realignment comes, I think that Rutgers is probably looking for a home, and maybe even Maryland looking for a home, because those are 2 teams that's really not bringing any value to that conference. And to be honest with you, the Big Ten Conference needs to get some higher power teams in there. So we might see the Big Ten Conference reach out to another high power team to compete and to bring that conference up to the level that Ohio State is, because internally they just don't have it right now. Obviously, Michigan, I don't want to give those guys too much time, but that's a team that used to be up there. Michigan State was up there for a couple of years and is no longer there. If it's not Ohio State and Penn State, there's really not 2 teams or any other team in that conference that's right there neck and neck.
Yeah, I agree. And Indiana is going to be very good. They're Michael Penix Jr. coming back. He got hurt last year, which was a shame. He's going to be a really good quarterback. But so, yeah, I could see like Nebraska, when he came into the Big Ten, when they came into the Big Ten, they thought that was the team you're talking about, Jeremy. We remember how great Nebraska was and how relevant they were, and it just hasn't worked out. Rutgers and Maryland, they took the money. They were worried about the fan base. I guess you'd have to ask the accountants if it was worth it. That's the only people that would know, because it hasn't helped Big Ten football. Specifically Ohio State. I don't necessarily know that, the recruiting ground changed or anything like that. So I think you're right. This is a conference that, even though they're kind of stuck in the mud with their traditions and their size and all that it could use an overhaul.
Yeah, I think they have to add some high-power teams, man. I think they have to get rid of the Marylands and the Rutgers that seem to be the weight in that conference, because even Nebraska can do it, right? We've seen Nebraska. Nebraska can do it. I just don't think they've had the right staff there that can recruit, right? You put a recruiter in Nebraska, and I think it's a completely different team. It kind of reminds me of Purdue. Purdue will sneak up on you. Purdue will punch you in the mouth at Purdue, no matter what team you are that rolls into there, because they can recruit pretty well for the school that they are. So I think that Nebraska's issues, the bigger issues, are just their recruiting ability or inability right now. But I see that Big Ten having to make some changes and add in at least a team, maybe another team that's on the level that Ohio State is in some of these realignment. Who that is, I don't know, but I do know one that would probably be a pretty good fit that I think is an up-and-coming team, and that is Mizzou.
Yeah, I could see Missouri. What about it? We could steal an Oklahoma State. That's a program with a lot of money that could probably use a facelift. They're really good. So it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what's going on. I mean, Kentucky, could they slide into whatever conference is going to be left if the SEC is growing? Do they slide up into the North? I don't know they might just put all these teams in one of those Yahtzee cups and just shake them out. I really, at this point, have no idea what's going to happen.
It'll be interesting for sure. Let's move on to the ACC. Now, this is a conference, man. Obviously, there's some guys in here that are on the same level, right? That are champions and have that ability to be champions. But then there are definitely some teams in here that don't have a snowball chance in hell of ever competing even for the conference championship. Jeff, what's your take on the ACC?
So, it's par for the course here. I got Clemson. They're bringing back a quarterback that played a little last year. I'll go ahead and say his name, DJ Uiagalelei. Sorry, DJ, wow. I apologize. I gave it a shot. They have I call them the Monstars, like the Space Jam Monstars coming back on the defensive line. These guys are absolute freaks. Probably sent 4 to 5 of their defensive linemen to the NFL. They have a well-coached secondary. They've been the best secondary in the league for 6 or 7 years under I almost said his name wrong. I almost said Bielema, but not Bielema. His name escapes me. A great coach, makes $2 million a year to coach defense. And but as long as their quarterback plays good, it's their conference to win. But now at number 2, I got North Carolina, and I think this kind of goes across the board. They got Sam Howell coming back, who should be. I mean, he's a Heisman contender going into the season. He's a really good quarterback. Their pass defense is pretty good. Mac Brown's brought in a lot of talent. We don't know where it fits or what it's going to do, but you got to have the skill out there. As far as they say, the receivers he's got to replace should be pretty good. Should be UNC and Clemson in the championship game. Then I got Miami / North Carolina State. Whoever's quarterback plays decent or better is going to be the third best team, in my opinion. We think De'Aaron King from Miami is going to be great. He's coming off a knee injury. We know he's a dynamic player. The NIL stuff will factor into his career because he jumped into it. He's basically an entrepreneur now. Will that affect? Positive or negative, we don't know. They got Alabama first, tough matchup. They got, then they're coming out with App State. We just talked about what a 2-game, they may come out of that injured. Who knows? So whatever quarterback is the best between North Carolina State, Miami, I think it's the third best team. But I don't see how it's not Clemson's conference to lose at this point. We'd be crazy to think anything else.
Yeah. Mash, what's your take on the ACC?
It's Clemson's conference to lose. We saw their backup in action last year. I mean, he played a few games in Trevor Lawrence's absence, and he looked good. So, who else are you going to go out there? Who's going to Boston College? No, not really. Florida State's taken 6 steps backwards themselves. NC State has like fits of where they want to be good, but they just aren't. And then, Virginia Tech is another team that's taken some steps back and kind of lost themselves. So Miami's the only other one I can really see threatening Clemson. But no, this is their conference.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. Clemson's conference. I hate to say this. I know that people ride high on Howell, but to be honest with you, I watched him. We beat him in Chapel Hill his freshman year. I haven't seen that much improvement out of him, right?
That's fair.
If I'm being completely honest with you, I think Louisville has a better chance than UNC. Oh, wow. Just because I know the staff at Louisville and I know what those guys are capable of putting on the field. My question is, what the hell is wrong with Florida State?
That's the one of the questions of the last couple years. I mean,
yeah.
Did the Florida teams cannibalize themselves with talent? We saw Miami go through this when the Gators got better. Miami took a step back. We saw it. Florida State, when they're good, Miami and Florida have to take a step back. So is it as simple as that? It doesn't make any sense that they getting the wrong coaches, and it feels like some of the players they bring in don't work out like they think. So is that development? Is it recruiting problems? But I mean, a few years ago, they were right after Winston left. They were talented and losing. They were getting upset. And then when you watch them the last couple of years, you're just like, they weren't as good as the other team on the field. It just, Notre Dame went through this for a long time. Like for a long time, we looked at the uniforms and we're like, we don't know what's going wrong. And if they were wearing, different jerseys, we would just say that they're just an average team. And that's where Florida State's at. Like, we have to forget about, the 95, the 90s teams, and look at them who they are now. And they're just an average ACC team.
Mhm.
And I don't, it's coaching mistakes. It's recruiting mistakes. It's just one misstep after another with this squad.
Yeah. Couple of teams that probably need to do some self-evaluation: Wake Forest and Virginia Cavaliers. If I'm those two teams in the ACC, probably need to do some reevaluation about where you're at in that conference and figure something out, because those two teams, especially Wake Forest has the ability, and they can definitely recruit the talent. They're obviously they can't put it together on a field. I mean, those guys have some big name talents on their team, and they just can't put it together. They'll have one game that they'll go and beat an NC State, but then they'll lose to Virginia Cavaliers at home the following game. So it's a tough road for those guys, but I'm excited to watch what Satterfield does with Louisville. Florida State have no idea. Clemson is obviously, they're the front runner of this conference, and will be as long as Dabo's there, in my opinion. He just has a great program that those guys want to play football for him every day. So
yeah, they have it rolling right now for sure.
Can I say save the best for last?
Absolutely.
This is the only conference that really matters.
Yeah, save the best for last. The SEC. This is a this is a no-brainer. But Jeff, give us your take on the SEC.
This it's another. We talked about 3 conferences like this already. It's Alabama's conference to lose. You'd be insane to figure out a way that they're not. Bryce Hall coming in, a new quarterback, but we saw what they did with Mac Jones, a replacement quarterback last year. They got better. Bryce Hall, it's one of those things that, yeah, he hasn't played a lot, but if he's a starting quarterback at Alabama after all summer, then he's really, really good. He'll be fine. Their roster's loaded as usual. And what's the different about Alabama that separates them is the guys that they have in waiting, they might be juniors this year. So these guys stick around the program. They're not sophomores coming up. They're juniors. So they're ready to go. They're physically ready to go. Just loaded. And as another plus, they have Nick Saban as a coach. The guy has figured it out. He's got a formula. He knows how to get his coaches coaching the best of their ability, which I think is really impressive in college football. He's one of the best defensive minds of all time. I don't know how much actual coaching he does anymore, but he's got it figured out. He's got a formula figured out. That team was ready to play every game last year. We saw the national championship. They were healthier than Ohio State. They were faster. They were stronger. They were every facet of the game, and Ohio State was a really good team. So I have no reason to think it's not Alabama's to lose. But then I got second this year, I got Georgia, and I know it feels like a broken record. We're saying Georgia's good again, and then they're going to disappoint us. But I think JT Daniels is the answer finally at them at quarterback, trying to piece in a quarterback and find, the right when they lost Justin Fields. That killed them. They'd have loved to have that guy the last 2 years. I think JT Daniels is good. Their defense is great, and they have a ton of talent. They're one of the highest recruiting classes for over 10 years now. So I think Georgia's a solid second, and it should be them in Alabama for the title. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset here or there. It could honestly, Miami could upset Alabama game 1. Anything can happen in something like that. And then Georgia puts themselves right in the playoff race. But Georgia and South Carolina play week 1. So somebody's behind the 8 ball right off the get-go. So that's fun. And then for third, this was a tough one. I went with Florida State / LSU. And again, it's a cop-out because of quarterback play. They both have, the LSU's quarterback played a little bit last year, but they don't even know if he's a starter. Florida's got a guy coming in, ultra talented. He played some in the bowl game, but you still don't know. They have a ton of talent across the board. I think LSU is pretty good. I think they're way better than they looked last year because of the guys that opted out and stuff like that. They've got Derek Stingley Jr. Is going to be a Heisman candidate at defensive back this year. Well, wow. He's going to be a game changer. So if their quarterback plays pretty good, I think it's LSU. But Florida proved that, if their quarterback's good, they can put up some points. So it's either going to be Florida or LSU, and just going to have to watch the quarterbacks play. I could not decide between the two. I think Texas A&M takes a step back last year just because they lost Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
It's funny because I literally have the same rankings you do for the same reasons. And
Well,
I don't have
really
anything
smart.
before you get to me. I have nothing to add to that because Alabama and Georgia are miles ahead of, Alabama's obviously like 10 miles ahead of Georgia, but when you look at those two programs, everybody else is far behind. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean
There's
Florida and LSU, they're still trying to find themselves. I feel like Florida made some noise last year, sure. And then outside of the top four of the SEC, everybody is so interchangeable because nobody has a clear identity right now. Especially,
Agreed.
I think Texas A&M hasn't found their identity since the Johnny Manziel days and Sumlin days, and so it's just so interchangeable back there. And it's Alabama. Alabama's going to win the championship.
What do you think about Bo Nix at Auburn? And we rarely get a highly touted fourth-year starter. Is it? And I'm always of the opinion, and I never bash a kid, but I'm saying I'm always of the opinion. Well, he's still there for a reason, but you're still getting a 4-year, high-rated starter. It can with a new coach.
I still think they beat themselves all the time, though. Like more often, they get in their own way more often than not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting conference. Nothing to add to what you guys said. Completely agree with it. But what I will say is that there's some names in this conference that I'm like, where the hell's Tennessee been?
Yeah.
They can't get anything started. They have no foothold. As soon as they get their foot in the door, and then it's slammed shut on them anyways.
Well, they don't keep a coach for longer than 2 seasons now?
It's been a mess down there. They just you got to bring in a coach, and you got to get a coach quarterback combo.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't tell me
they've culture there.
Yeah, you can't tell me they've missed this many years in a row. Look at Ohio State. I know Ohio State, the SEC is more competitive than the Big Ten, but Ohio State's going to have, when Ewers gets there in like 8 days now, they're going to have 4 guys that could definitely start at a school. Like they're going to have 4 college football starters at quarterback in their quarterback room.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how you can tell me that Tennessee can't get a guy.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. Something's not adding up here.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think something's going on with that culture that people don't want to be a part of that. Something's going on with the visits that people are just like, man, I don't want any part to do with whatever it is that's going on in Knoxville. So it's an interesting conference. A lot of obviously big names, guys that are going to continue to win championships, and a lot of teams that never have a hope. What I will say is Texas A&M is making some noise, and as always, so we went and played Tennessee. They were ranked number 9, took them into overtime. We went and played Penn State. I think they were ranked number 5, took them into overtime. Next year we go play Texas A&M. That's probably going to be ranked up in the top 10. So it's going to be an interesting Texas A&M. Those guys have a following and have the ability, if they can put it together and continue what they're doing down there. But Alabama, man, as long as Saban is breathing, I don't see anybody beating Alabama too badly and not, contending for that conference other than maybe Georgia, and that takes a little bit of luck on Georgia's part.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think luck and injury, like all that stuff has to fall into place. I don't think Georgia's there yet, but anything can happen. I guess that's why they play the game, so to speak. I tell you what, speaking of realignment, Texas A&M, you touched on it, Jeremy, has put themselves in great shape at this point. This is exactly where they want to be for realignment. They're going to be considered one of the big boys, on the block when they're looking at these teams. They're just, and as to where we just talked about Tennessee is on their low. You want to be riding high for these television contracts and all the NIL stuff, and kids want to go there and things like that. Like Texas A&M's really put themselves in good position. And there's where when they went to the SEC, we questioned it, and it's working out wonderful for them.
Yeah, they've done it right for sure. They've put together talent. They've got the support. The stadium's always full. They got the money to do it, to bring the talent and the coaches in there. So it's going to be interesting to see. Texas A&M is obviously a contender if they can continue to put it together. LSU, without a doubt, right? They got good recruiting. They've got a coach that is absolutely loved like a father to most of the guys that will speak of him. So I think those guys can put it together. If they get another quarterback and get a couple of good quarterbacks behind him that are in the waiting, I think those guys could definitely make some noise. The fan base down there is rabid for LSU. If you've never been to Louisiana or New Orleans, those guys are rabid fans for that team. So that's a team that could put it together, and all it takes is the right couple of guys in there to make that offense what it needs to be again. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. Jeff, so championship game. Let's go to the last game of the season. Who is it?
Oh boy, I will say Ohio State, Oklahoma.
Whoa.
Yep. I think things are going to go wrong for somebody. Somebody's going to get knocked off. There's going to be some controversy. That's just how I'll say it. I'll go with Ohio State, Oklahoma right now because there's absolutely nothing on the line.
well, here's where and I like that choice. And you know why I like that choice? Because we figured COVID out, right? They've already said it. You either play the game or you forfeit the game. There's not going to be, we're just going to scratch it from the schedule and not count it as a loss or anything. So you get into a situation where COVID rears its ugly head and a team can't fill a roster.
That's a really good point.
And has to forfeit a team or a game. that can change a season upside down pretty quickly.
Man, I don't know about you guys, but I'm hoping and as is, I do more sports podcasts than you guys, but man, I hope I don't have to spend another 20 weeks factoring that into every week. Man, I
hope not.
I mean, it was reality, but man, I just want to talk about the games and the talent this year. As an Ohio State podcaster, it was rough, but we had one of the weirdest seasons and just everything. And I just want it to be, I won't say normal. I'll just say average. I just want it to be average.
Well, I don't mean to give you any bad news, but I just received an email from our university right before I came on here that's effective immediately. They're going back to everybody has to wear a mask indoors.
Hey, I work at a hospital, Jeremy. I've already got the bad news.
Yeah, so does my wife. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So
but anyway,
I think I hate to say it, but I think we're headed back down that road sooner rather than later. Hopefully it doesn't get to the point where we're limiting people in the stands again this season, because I'll be honest with you.
I got a date in Chicago.
Yeah. There's two people that are affected, the players and the players, right?
Yeah.
Those guys miss out on a season of fans in their stadium with family, friends, their teammates, their classmates. I just hope that we can avoid that this season and make this season happen. But it's going to be an interesting one for sure, and I think hopefully we'll be able to see some good college football played in some filled stadiums.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. It's a great schedule this season. Here in a couple of weeks on the website, I'll have our dream college football road trip put up. And when you really break down week to week, each week has 2 to 3 just really fun matchups. App State was actually on my list. You'll be proud of me, Jeremy. It made the list.
Nice, Jeff.
Mainly because I want to get to Boone, and I brought it up.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, let me know when you post that or do that. Have you had that episode? I'd definitely share it with the people around and then get you some listeners out there.
Yeah, it's actually one of our partners, Jay Stevens, did it. So if you go to the Jay Stevens podcast, you'll see the college football road trip on there. There's two separate weeks of it. So everybody go to Jay Stevens podcast and check it out. He's a really good podcaster anyways. Check out them all, but it's on there. The college football road trip's on there. And then I'll be putting the website version up here soon of it, so people can see. We want to track it through the year to see how right or wrong we were about the games.
Yeah, nice. Well, Jeff, the invitation's open if you ever want to come down to Boone and set. I tell you, we set 50-yard line on the opposing team side about 8 rows back, and we just raise absolute hell. So if you're ever interested, you got a ticket.
I stand by it. If things are average this year, it's still on our list. I promise.
Nice. Yep. Nice. And likewise for Boise State, Mash. Definitely want to get out there and check out that atmosphere.
Get on out, yeah.
Jeff, and I do you get into the Horseshoe? Do you have tickets at the Horseshoe?
Oh yeah, we go. We usually go 2 to 3 times a year. We always go to the Big Ten championship game when they play in Indianapolis. It's about 5 hours away, but it's so much fun. But oh yeah, we go to 2 or 3 games a year.
Well, I'm gonna take you up on one of these years when Michigan comes to town, and I'm gonna have to put the name in the hat early, because I would love to go see Michigan get drug around that stadium for a game.
I haven't been to one yet. That's I haven't made it to an Ohio State Michigan game yet. It's definitely on my list. But the problem with that is it gets, unless you have season tickets, which they cost a fortune too, because you have to pay to get season tickets. So it's like I don't even know what the upfront is now just to get season tickets. So we buy game to game. By the time you get to Michigan, it's $2,000 tickets, and we're like, I don't know. I could sit in the bar and and eat wings and have some beers. So it's always a tough choice.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, Jeff, we appreciate having you on tonight, man. It's always good to talk to you about college football.
Oh man, this was the best. Sorry about my technical difficulties. It's every time
we have them too. It happens.
Yeah, it's just one of those things.
Hey, man, I will tell you right now, you're not telling anybody, any crew that doesn't know technical difficulties. So as you've seen, we were dealing with it right before we hit the go button. So definitely appreciate the effort, man. Always solid content. And I will tell you what, take Jeff's, go look at his list, listen back to it, write these teams down. I will tell you, these will be contenders in the conference. Jeff is pretty in tune with what's going on in college football. So you can put some money on it. Lucky, if you're watching. If you're watching, Lucky, listen to Jeff or reach out for Jeff for betting advice. You might not lose so much money this season.
Oh, and happy birthday to Hoppy. I was today, her birthday, I believe I saw. Yeah, my fellow Dolphins fan. But also check out offtheballnetwork.com. I put all my stuff up there. I'll have rankings. I do NFL and college rankings all season. You can come on there and yell at me just like everybody else does.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely happy birthday to Hoppy. That's why she's not with us this evening. And Brew Witch is out, and I think she's still out in California, right,
Valley.
Mesh?
Yeah, she's in Napa Valley.
Yep. And Lucky still doesn't have a computer. I think they're still recovering from the hangover of the Bucks winning that championship up there in Milwaukee.
I don't blame them. They probably smashed it.
Yeah. He was actually at the game, Jeff, when they won that championship game. So if you haven't listened to his podcast, he released it last night on Tuesday night on the Hops News Network. He said that we are the champions. So there was, I think, two or three of them. Yeah, there was 2 or 3 of them that were at the game. They talk about the whole experience. Pretty cool experience those guys had. Let's go check in with Mash, get his parting shots. And what do we have to look forward to from Geeks, Mash?
Yeah, we just released an episode with our sponsor there, Woodland Empire. We talked about Sweet Tooth, so that's out. Go ahead, listen. Tomorrow night, I teamed up with my heterosexual life mate, Josh, and we went ahead and we did a commentary track for the first time ever. It's Batman Forever, which is probably one of the greatest cinematic experiences you'll ever have. So that drops tomorrow night. And then we talked with a really great comic book creator / video game designer, John Davis Hunt. That's going to drop next week. And I'm still tracking to go to Comic-Con in September, hopefully as part of the media. And I'm working on some other media passes and things like that. So stay tuned.
Nice. Hoppy coming out there with you for that one?
No, we're talking about maybe Chicago. She maybe come out there for Chicago instead. So we'll see. Just because she's going to Jamaica the following week, and with COVID getting kind of sketchier, it's just might be safer to where she just waits, and then Chicago. That's looking like the move. October.
Nice. Either way, it'll be a good time.
Oh yeah.
Definitely check out Geeks. Always some awesome content. I think you probably need to get Jeff on a Geeks episode one night because I think he's into that sort of thing as well.
His killing joke right behind him before the show too. So and we chat regularly on Twitter. He's somebody I chat with pretty often on Twitter.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jeff, parting shots. Where can people find all the awesome sports content you're putting out?
Well, my podcast is Jeff Needs Sports. I do several varieties. I do, I do Buckeye episodes during the season. I do a lot of power rankings and stuff. My network is offtheballnetwork.com. There's about 20 of us now. I'm vice president. And we put a lot of awesome content on our website. We have podcasts going out regularly, a lot of live shows. So basically, yeah, if you check out Jeff Needs Sports, find me on Facebook. You find me on Twitter at jhunt006. I love to interact, just like Mash was telling you there. Love to interact with the fans. If you get crazy, you can go check out Jeff Needs Help. That's my other podcast where it's more general discussion. We do some fun stuff. I also did a show with Josh. It was awesome. Hops Geeks is on my bucket list. So yeah, and then offtheballnetwork.com for all your sports needs. And we love to hear from you people. We love to talk to you, love to interact with you, because we do everything for the fans. We really do.
Awesome. Definitely appreciate you coming on again tonight, Jeff.
You guys are the best.
Check us out, Hops News, anywhere that you find podcasting or social media at Hops News. You can check us out there, and check out our Twitter account. We've done something pretty cool the other night with the Spaces. We talked a little bit of college football, and we plan on doing that, I think, on Saturday mornings. Hopefully Jeff will be able to join us. I think there'll be some other guys from some other sports networks that join us to talk college football. I will tell you, if it's game day in Boone, I'll be live from a tailgate. You'll probably hear some hell raising in the background, and I'll have plenty of beer by the time we go live on there. So go check us out there. We'll do something this weekend, I think, maybe Saturday at some point. Get on there and see who wants to chat some college football, because camps have started. There'll be some injuries that come out of camps. There'll be some surprises in camps. There'll be some decisions made on who's starting at quarterback or who's starting where. So go check us out on Saturday on our Twitter account. Spaces is pretty cool because you don't have to set up for it. There's no camera involved. There's no video. It's just audio. We can pull it out literally while you're anywhere, at a tailgate or at work or wherever you may be, and chat with us or listen to the conversation. So go check that out. We'll use that a little bit more this season as it goes on. Definitely appreciate you guys tuning in and checking us out. Stay tuned next week. I don't know what we're going to have as a topic yet next week, but we'll make something up in the next day or two, or maybe the hour before the episode starts. Appreciate you guys joining us. Appreciate Mash and Jeff for being on tonight. You guys have a great night, and be safe out there.
Cheers.
Cheers, folks.
Sick. I'm going to hop off and take a piss. But
yeah,
Jeff, good talking to you again, man.
Bad. Jeff, appreciate you, man.
No, you guys are the best. It was great to be on with you, man. We got to get together sometime.
Oh yeah, we could have talked for hours on this.
No, your shows are dope. It's one of my go-tos every week. So I always look forward to everything you guys put out.
Sweet. Well,
awesome,
I'm gonna
guys.
get you on an episode of Geeks here soon. We'll chat some comic book stuff as well, man.
Hell yeah.
Sick. I'll talk to y'all soon. Later.
All right, guys.
Thanks as usual, man. It's great to talk. Great to hear your voice again, man. It just always takes me back.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Anytime.
Well
Anytime.
over a year. Well